Welcome back to another episode of the Cozypreneur podcast. Today we have our first guest, Mariah, and I'll let her introduce herself in a minute, but she is one of my clients and we have been working together for pretty much a year. So it is our anniversary celebratory podcast, and we're going to take a walk down memory lane and kind of take you behind the scenes of her business and what has shifted in the past year and has allowed her to scale to six figures in a year. Welcome back to another episode of the Cozypreneur podcast. If this is your first time listening, Cozypreneur is all about helping you make money and work with the dreamiest of clients. So grab your beverage, get your cozy socks on, and let's dive in. So welcome, Mariah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. So happy to be here. So like Stacy said, I'm Mariah. I met her randomly on Instagram about a year ago and basically forced her to become my friend by becoming her client. We had a donut party. We've just been through a bunch of stuff together. And what I do is I coach B2B service providers on how to scale their business in a way that feels really, really good and gets them to their dream life in a way that works for them. And the vibe is like high energy, girl in the bathroom line, super safe space with a big emphasis on community. But I didn't start there. And it's actually been all of my work with Stacy over the last year that has allowed me to really hone in on exactly what it is that I love, so that my clients have the best experience possible, so that they have the best results possible, and so that honestly, I'm like as happy and most profitable as possible. And I really don't think I would have gotten here at this pace because I've only been in business for a year and I'm almost at, multi six figures within that year if I hadn't had Stacy's support and guidance and also education across the way.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. So if you don't know Mariah, this is actually her second business. She had a Teachers Pay Teachers business for my teacher friends out there. And so when we started working together, it was really about like, how do we like get some of that audience and some of those people into this new business? And I mean, the first thing that we launched together was the accelerator, which doesn't even exist anymore.
No, she's gone. Yeah, we were emailing. I did Launch Renaissance with you. First of all, let's back up. I felt like I needed help with copywriting. So I went on an Instagram search, looked up copywriting. Stacy was one of the first people I found, clicked the link in her bio, went to the Launch Renaissance page. And when I was reading that copy, she said something in there that said, you're only reaching 25% of your audience. And I was scandalized because I had a huge audience already built up in my first business. My email list was like 8,000. I had 14,000 people on my Instagram. And I was like, 25%? Like, what is happening? And she hooked me with that sales copy, which obviously as a copywriter, you should be able to do because the copy is the point. So she hooked me. I could tell she was trying to like get me into a nurture sequence in the DMs, figure out what I'm about. I'm like, nah, I'm good. Let's book. Take my money. Like, here we go. So I joined Launch Renaissance. We built out my first launch. This was like, what was this, December?
It was December because I remember having a conversation with you that was like, this is kind of a fast turnaround, but we can do it.
Yeah.
And then you were like,
New Year's webinar or something.
Yeah, you were like, do we even have time for pre-launch? I'm like, if you move fast, we can do it.
Fast is my middle name. So I'd only started my business in October and I was like, I'm launching this huge program. And that program sold out right away through Launch Renaissance. But like we said, that program doesn't even exist anymore because since then, obviously in your first year of business, so much is evolving and so much is changing and like you don't even know who you are. So throughout that, a lot has changed. But once Launch Renaissance was done, I firsthand saw the power of copy and what good copy could do. And Stacy put in so much legwork for that, like going and interviewing people in my community to get their exact language. Like that had never occurred to me before. And it was so amazing for her to go and interview people and spend that time doing that. And then writing out the emails and me getting them and being like, did I write this? How does this sound exactly like me? Like, what is happening right now? And just, it was so good that I knew it was a skill that I really wanted to learn for myself. And also from a revenue standpoint, I wasn't at the point where I could hire Stacy on to write my emails all the time. Launch Renaissance was like a clear return on investment because it was a big launch and I knew I was going to repurpose that launch at least one other time. But I wanted to learn those skills for myself. So when she started Copy Classroom, that was perfect for me because I like doing copy. I like learning things. And I was like, let me blast her with content. Like, you told me it's unlimited material revisions. Best of luck. So I was just putting in so much copy every single email, and she was giving me really great feedback that I learned so much about copy within the first few months, and my revenue was showing that. She basically kicked me out, to be fair.
I kind of did. I was like, you don't really need this anymore.
Yeah. She was like, I don't have any feedback for you. Like, move on. But that made sense because Stacy, her whole point is like education to the point that you are making enough money that you can then take copywriting off your plate. So that's exactly what we did. We got to that point where now I can do a bunch of the copywriting, and sometimes I'm like not the most organized person in the world. So I'll write emails and then send them to Stacy and she'll tweak them or work on a funnel or whatever. But she does write my monthly emails. And I think the best compliment is that I had mentioned that in one of my group calls lately. And one of my most loyal, die-hard, like ride or die clients was like, you don't write your emails?
Oh my gosh, that is a compliment. What a win.
She was fully shocked. I was like, I mean, I write some of them. And she was like, which ones? I'm like, I'll never tell. I'll never tell. And now she's always trying to guess, like, if it's you or me, and she can't.
That's so funny. I have this like really cynical thought. I'm like, is it just copywriters reading and writing everybody's emails, and like business owners are not even in the picture at all? It's just copywriters.
Probably. It's like Secret Service. I'm like, do I put her on my website and say she's a copywriter? But like, not really, because you're supposed to be me. Like,
Yeah, it's so funny. I have so much fun writing your emails too, because the vibe is, it is high energy, but it's also fun. And like, so sometimes I'm like sitting and like writing these emails and I'm like laughing to myself. And I'm like, I hope that Mariah finds this as funny as I find it.
Always do. And I love when you put notes and you're like, is this too much? And I'm like, never. The more, the better.
Did I teach him correctly? I don't know.
Yeah, that was good. But at the same time, like, that's the tone that you adopt from me because that's my brand voice. But that wouldn't work for some of your other retainer clients. And that's not the copy that you were giving feedback on all the time in Copy Classroom. Because I was in that and I was seeing people that were, you know, a little bit more like corporate, professional, healthcare kind of vibe. And they were doing totally different copy, but you could also just completely personify their brand voice as well, which is a skill that I think is really not talked about enough in the copywriting space, about how you're like literally a chameleon.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it definitely takes a little bit to like learn somebody's brand voice. But I think that's the cool thing about Copy Classroom is like once you've submitted like a few things, I'm like, okay, I got it. Like I know your voice and I can like give suggestions like based on your voice. And I think that's one of the things that clients inside are like, wow, like this actually sounds like me. And that's really surprising. And it doesn't sound like ChatGPT. I'm like, I know, it's what I do all day.
I know.
Okay, so we launched the accelerator. So why did you scrap accelerator and what happened? Tell me a little bit more about like the behind the scenes.
So Accelerator was originally an 8-week program. With Launch Renaissance, we knocked it out and that program completely filled. I feel like I had 10 spots in it, but I can't exactly remember. And what we found was that the content was really, really good, but the delivery of the program in its model of 8 weeks was not realistic or sustainable for my clientele because things would always come up in their life. And so another thing that Stacy brings to the table is a really strong awareness of educational design. And that's her teacher background coming into it as well. So we were talking about, okay, it's not the content that's the problem. The step-by-step plans, the zero fluff planning, the here's exactly what you need to do was good. And my retention was amazing. I had 3 versions of it all running simultaneously, and most people did all 3. So it wasn't an issue about the program content and deliverables being successful, but keeping that momentum up for 8 full weeks and expecting people to stay on a plan with daily things for 8 weeks was just not reasonable or realistic. And it was one of those things where, okay, well, now it's 8 weeks and now I have to launch it again. I have to launch it again. I have to launch it again. So from a business owner perspective, it wasn't sustainable for me either to just be launching so often. So we ended up deciding to tweak that into more of an evergreen self-paced course where we took all of that content in it, but people can go through it at their own pace. So then we are taking some of that content from Launch Renaissance, but also from all of the other emails Stacy's written for me. And now instead we're building out like a nurture sequence that's going to lead people in an evergreen way into that offer, which makes so much more sense in terms of scaling, in terms of meeting people where they're at, and also ensuring that they're able to get the most out of that content and program possible without that pressure and rush the whole time.
I think it's an important conversation too, because I think like, especially like in that first year of business, like you are trying out so many different things and like you kind of want to like get it right the first time, but like everything I've put out, I've changed, right? Like Copy Classroom has been rebranded. Launch Renaissance didn't come about until I sold like all the different pieces individually. And I was like, wait, this should be a package. Like people need all three things. Like they need the sales page, they need the messaging, and they need the emails. And so I think that like sometimes like this idea of like, I have to get it all right. I have to have everything done. It kind of holds people back. But like, I think that you are a really good example of like refinement and like how you can put something out there and see what works and see what doesn't, and then tweak it and then tweak it again and tweak it again. And, you know, you'll eventually find what's going to work for you and what's going to make the most sense, but like not holding back on taking action and just doing it, because that's going to give you way more information than if you're just like trying to perfect it.
Absolutely. I was just talking about this last night with one of my clients on our group coaching call because she is in her first year of business, first few months, and she's already doing amazing, like booked out client load and everything. But she's like, I don't know, we planned out this whole offer suite and I'm not really feeling aligned or excited about this one particular membership model. I don't think I want to do it. And she was feeling this guilt or pressure about having not even executed it yet or not wanting to launch it because it wasn't what she wanted to do. And I was like, this, it's not a you problem. It literally just sounds like you're in your first year of your business, which you are. Because you don't know how things are going to play out until you actually do them. And you have to give yourself that space to play and figure it out. So having you there to bounce ideas off and even to suggest things. So right before this, I was sending out an email that you wrote that's going to go out tomorrow. I'm supposed to be more organized than that, but that's a story for another day. And I was reading through it and you misinterpreted something I said into like a way better way. Because in my mind, I was going to give these trainings to people who were already in a program. And then you were like, perfect, we'll give them out as a freebie to get people into the training. And I was like, that is not what I was thinking, but this is way better. So I'm going to do that instead. So you just understand my business and my clientele so well at this point that you pick up on things and ways to nurture them and build that trust that wasn't on my radar, but through your copywriting and you're seeing like their progression through the sales flow, you're like, actually, this would be sweet right here. And then I'm like, nice, love it. And I go and do it.
I know. I think that's that's our 2025 plan. We're reining Mariah in and we are planning ahead.
No, yeah. Yeah, Stacy on the team, and then I have a fractional COO now who's like, let's not just have undiagnosed ADHD in our business and be floating from thing to thing. We'll be a little bit more intentional. We'll be more strategic in how things are being planned out. But Stacy's been amazing to this point about just being fully on board with like crazy Mariah. And I'm like, I actually need launch emails for next week. So can you do those? And you're like, yes. But like, also, what? So that's been good, but it's also going to be really good to have more of a big picture intentional plan so that we can map things out really, really strategically.
So you transitioned from Launch Renaissance to kind of doing it yourself copy to back to getting me on retainer so that you could really outsource all of your emails, what has been like the biggest change for you in outsourcing your copy? And like, how has that affected you as a business owner and as a mom and as a person?
Honestly, it's not that I don't like copywriting or that I don't like writing emails. I was sending out 2 emails a week to my list and it was always fine. It's more just a realization that we have such limited capacity and we have such limited time in our schedules. I only have 2 full working days a week, the days that my kids are at daycare, and the rest of the time I don't want to be constantly feeling like there's things that are slipping through my fingers, or even in this moment today where I'm like, oh, I need to send out an email tomorrow. That's my own mistake. I've had this email from Stacy for like a long time. I could have scheduled it out, but it's just something I don't have to worry about and something I don't have to think about, because even though technically she gives them to me and you give them to me and I can read through them and I'm supposed to make revisions, I never do. I never have to change anything. So for me, it's a complete outsourcing that doesn't require management, versus with my VA, I have to go in and, give her feedback or have things tweaked, or there's still work that goes into having a VA because she's doing things for me, things come up, we're still communicating. But with you, there's no effort that goes into the outsourcing. So it truly just is a pure savings of time for me, in addition to being a lot more big picture strategic, because like we said, I am a fast actor. I'm a visionary. I am someone who just jumps into things boldly and confidently and kind of without a care in the world about ramifications. So being more strategic, where you're like thinking ahead, even where you were saying, okay, in 2 months we're doing this, so we need to be doing this now, is really, really helpful for me, because sometimes I feel like I am always racing the clock. Like we said before we first started working together, where I was like, I want to be doing this. I know I should be in pre-launch, but I just have so much I want to be sharing and doing all the time that it's very helpful to have you there, blocking things out, making sure that the customer flows make sense and that they're getting all the information that they need at the right times. And it's just a big weight off my shoulders to not have to think about that piece of the business, and also to know that I don't need to micromanage or edit. It's just, I fully trust what's coming my way and that it's going to create the impact that I need it to in my community.
It's really nice to get to hear that and to get that feedback. I love hearing about all of my client wins. And so with that, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for being our first ever guest.
So you can find me on Instagram and Threads at Mariah Makes It Happen. Threads, I'm a little bit more unhinged. Instagram is where it's at for business strategy and support and encouragement. You can also check out my website, mariahscrivens.com. And I do have my own podcast. Stacy was a guest over there. We were talking about the differences between done with you, done for you, and do it yourself programs and offerings, and helping you decide which one's the best for you. And we did talk a lot about the different ways you can work with Stacy, the different ways you can work with me. So if you're still wondering if you should be doing Copy Classroom or Launch Renaissance or just fully offloading it, that's a great reference for you to go ahead and listen to decide for yourself what phase of business you're in. So my podcast is called Make It Happen with Mariah Scrivens, and I would love to see you on over there, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can also find it on my website. She's everywhere.
All right, so go take a listen. Her podcast is really great, and we will see you next time. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate and leave a review on your preferred listening platform. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe for weekly episodes about how to make money and work with the dreamiest of clients without having to get dressed in the morning. Make sure to check out the show notes down below, and I'll see you in the next episode.